What's up, Blueprint family? Thank you all for joining us tonight. Hope you all had a wonderful weekend. So our topic tonight is why you may be attracting toxic relationships and what to do about it.
Yeah, inspired by a great question. We received a lot of great questions while we were on our little hiatus for things we had to take care of. But did I say that right? Hiatus?
Yes, you did.
Nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this great question that kind of helps set the stage for really what we're talking about tonight. We're going to check in our mics. Everything's sounding good. I'm going to pull this up here on YouTube so you'll be able to see it. Our Instagram viewers, of course, will keep you up to date as we go along. So thank you all for joining us.
Yep.
Sounding good. All right. So the question, why is it? All right, come on now.
It's up there, the question's there.
Yeah, just not us. Okay, anyways, I'm going to minimize it later anyway. So the question was, how do I keep attracting and end up dating the ones who are toxic and controlling? I don't know why I always seem to end up in toxic relationships. I mean, I haven't had that many relationships, but out of the ones I have had, they have all been controlling, disrespectful, or wanting me to become something I'm not within the relationship. They don't always start this way, of course. I'd never know until a few months in. I also don't always meet them the same way. One was my coworker, some online, some in the grocery store. Should I be having conversations in a particular way to see if a guy is controlling or not? How do I filter these guys out? My friends always say my taste in men is awful, and I never really go for somebody who I should be. Basically, somebody attractive and nice. I usually date guys who I don't even find attractive or even think about dating them. Then they grow on me after a while of talking, which eventually turns into a relationship. It's a little frustrating. If it's something I'm doing, how do I change this? That was a lot of questions kind of wrapped into one, but nonetheless, we'll be able to break this on down. And I think I know this will be very beneficial for a lot of people because, it's not quite uncommon, especially in this day and age of what seems to be normal, for it to actually be toxic, right?
Right, and then I just wanted to throw this out there too. And she's not someone who wants to stay in a toxic relationship either.
Right, because she says she leaves, so that's a good thing. That's a very good thing. And it's always, awareness is always, one of the best things in order to change any type of situation in your life. You got to be aware of it. Last week, before we ended up taking a break for a little bit, we talked about the frequency of love. And I really recommend people watching that video because, believe it or not, if a person is giving off low, negative, or insecure energy, they are definitely more likely to attract people with similar energy. As much as we don't all like to, take in that as a reason to why I may be attracting, certain things, but this really does include toxic people. So really, it's just one thing to really take in consideration.
Right, and sometimes this is done unconsciously.
Yeah.
By just having a habit of focus of negativity and thoughts and feelings. Mm-hmm. So by doing this, you are essentially creating a negative reality for yourself. So this includes attracting toxic people, like my wife was saying, into your life.
Yeah, and we're certainly going to get into all the reasons. Right now, I think this will be this is the easiest thing because it's the most fresh on my mind. This is certainly the easiest thing that I see with common, cycles of just repeating, toxic relationships. Often, too, people with low self-esteem, that level of insecurity, and you're emitting that type of frequency, you may, believe that you don't deserve to be treated well. And as a result, you are also more likely to end up in toxic relationships.
And some things for a person who has a fear of being alone. So they are definitely more likely to end up in, even worse, stay in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Even when they are unhappy. That sunken cost fallacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about that.
And another thing is important to note is that we are naturally drawn to what we are familiar with. So if you grew up in a dysfunctional family or experienced previous toxic relationships, you may be more likely to attract toxic people into your life because this is what is familiar to you.
Mm-hmm. So this is something as simple as, adults who grew up in those dysfunctional families. As children, you may be attracted to toxic people who really remind you of your parents or your other caregivers from your childhood. And this, again, is commonly unconscious. It's something you may not quite recognize, but, it's something to be aware of. And people who also, grew up in dysfunctional families or have experienced previous toxic relationships, they may also be more likely to repeat those same patterns in their own relationships. So in return, it could be like you being the toxic one, and you not even meaning to be the toxic one, but, that's just kind of how it goes when you just learn those bad toxic behaviors or unhealthy toxic behaviors.
Right, and adults who grew up in dysfunctional families often have low self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
So they may believe that they are unloved, unworthy, or flawed in some way. So this can lead them to attract toxic people and have a toxic relationship and or accept bad treatment from others in their adult relationships.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately. Yeah. And of course, sometimes a person may become addicted to this drama and chaos and, just in general, the mind chemistry of it's something that you're used to, you're familiar with, and you can really become addicted to that. That's actually scientifically proven. In particular, this is especially common if drama and chaos is something that, you're always comfortable just being around. It's like any other day. It's not normal to have a toxic or, drama, chaos, all that. It's not normal, believe it or not. So, if you're kind of comfortable with that, it may be a layer of like being addicted to it, because as strange as it may sound, some people may find themselves drawn to the intensity or the excitement of those toxic relationships.
It's called drama.
Yeah. Even if it's harmful, you're just like drawn to it. You may enjoy the feeling of being in that constant state of flux and uncertainty, the constant fight or flight. And sadly enough, I can relate to that, because trauma will put you, especially at a young age, in a state of constant fight or flight. So in a way, you kind of can be expecting the worst or expecting things to go bad or just used to things, taking place that way because, it happened to you as a young child and you carry those same patterns into adulthood if you don't address those things.
And also a trauma bond is a powerful emotional bond that can develop between two people who have experienced trauma together or, apart. But you get what I'm saying. So this type of bond can be very difficult to break even if the relationship is toxic. Reminds you of Blueface and Krishan.
Reminds you a lot of relationships that are actually out there now. But yeah, that's the prime example. Yeah, for sure. And, that's really difficult to get away from, unfortunately.
Right.
Especially if, like you mentioned, you've had some type of trauma together. That really creates that bonding experience to where you're just like, want to be with them. But it's not healthy.
Yep. And some people may become addicted to the drama and chaos of toxic relationships because they feel like they are getting attention, even if it is negative. So they may have learned this as a child, that negative attention is better than no attention at all.
Yeah. And that's a common thing that's, thrown out there. All attention is good attention, or all publicity is good publicity.
Right.
When, that can be an addictive type of thing that you can go through. So also there's things like intermittent reinforcement. So this is very, very common within toxic relationships. For those who aren't aware, this is a type of conditioning that takes place where a person is rewarded for their behavior, and it's on an unpredictable basis. So, for example, a toxic spouse may be very loving and affectionate one day and then cold and distant the next day. This is, it really creates that cycle of highs and lows that I mentioned earlier. And in particular, that can be really addicting to the person who's experiencing that within the relationship. It can also keep you on like a chase, especially if it was like, for example, in your childhood and you had to, deal with the parent who you never knew how their emotions were going to be. So you were kind of, one day they loved you, one day they didn't. One day they love you, one day they didn't. That really creates that addicting kind of relationship, and it's very harmful. So we certainly recommend that, especially when it's deeply rooted in some type of childhood trauma, to go and get that inner work and taking care of loving yourself and not being so hard on yourself, because unfortunately these things happen when you're at a child's age, and you have no control over who your parents are, who your caregivers are, or the type of situation that you grew up in. So it's not your fault, especially when it's learned from, you know, a dysfunctional type of family. So just be gentle with yourself, and please, though, make sure you take the time to heal those traumas for sure.
And another reason a person may keep at attracting toxic relationships is because they may not know what a healthy relationship looks like, unfortunately, because they didn't have their parents both together. So this is one of the main reasons why we start our channel, because if someone has never been in a healthy relationship or seen a healthy relationship altogether, or if they've learned unhealthy relationship patterns from their family, they may not have the tools to acknowledge, to identify, and avoid toxic relationships.
Yeah. So please, this is another reason, again, like you said, why we created the channel and why we have so many different topics. It's so easy to do Monday through Friday in this, because it's so many things that you can address to really help equip our community with the tools that we need, so that we can really see, you know, what a healthy relationship looks like. So please take the time, you know, binge watch our videos. We got lots of videos and a variety of topics. So please, the more you educate yourself, the more aware you are, and in particular, the more prepared you will be. So please, that's one of the reasons why we do what we do, and I'm, you know, grateful God gave us this, you know, type of mission to go along, because I really do think we're helping others, and in particular, especially those that unfortunately don't have the opportunity to see that, you know. And the internet is a beautiful place in the sense of it allows people to step outside their environment and receive what they're not receiving within their direct, you know, environment. So, yeah.
Yep, and so this leads us to the question, how do you filter out potential toxic spouses?
Yeah.
So number one, always take things slow. Don't rush into a relationship. Take your time to get to know this person before you commit to them, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this can really include things like, you know, doing your own research on this person, you know, before you take things any further. Especially, this young lady mentioned, you know, like online dating. Oops. Our connection was lost on our YouTube. It's coming on in. What is up? Our internet has been acting real janky today. I don't know what that is about. Nonetheless, sorry, YouTube people.
I don't think it may not be us. I think it's the restream.
It could be, because Restream has been active really weird. But nonetheless, we're going to keep it all moving, because we got our Instagram people here with us. So we're going to keep this on moving, and we'll be able to update, you know, upload some shorts or something about this later on. So
Yep.
That's all right. But anyways, like I was saying, so especially because this lady had said that, you know, she does online dating and stuff like that, you know, you really got to check, you know, who's out there and who may be, you know, just not who they say they are. In particular, what?
Did you want to restart the restream?
You want to?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
It says connecting. It won't even let me exit it.
You can just hit the X.
Let me see.
Because we might as well take it from not from the top, but just continue on to what we're doing.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so. It might be Restream, though. You're right. It might be.
It is.
That's the thing about doing all these different platforms. It never happens. But nonetheless, so things like, you know, checking their social media, right? So being a beautiful thing again about the internet is you got multiple avenues of being able to check up on a person to see, you know, who they are. So certainly check a person's social media. This may sound a little creepy, but in this day and age,
it's practical.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, to be honest. And it's never a bad idea to be safe, you know, rather safe than sorry. So certainly check social media. You can talk to mutual friends, like she also mentioned, like dating a coworker. So, you know, talking to other coworkers, you know, that's an easy way, or other mutual friends, maybe looking and see, you know, especially if you have mutual friends on social media, hitting the other person up and saying, hey, how was your experience? Of course, using a level of discernment with this, for sure. Some people may just, you know, say things that aren't necessarily true. but it's never a bad idea to, just see what could be going on. You could even run a background check on somebody. That's a big thing, but you really could. And it may seem a bit strange, but again, when you're meeting somebody online, you never really know. So I'm always all right with y'all being safe rather than sorry. So certainly do that.
And then you could utilize your friends and family by asking them to meet your date.
Mm-hmm.
So if if your loved ones are concerned about your date, especially about your safety, you can ask them to check them out and ask them questions. So they may be seeing things that you're not able to see as well.
Yeah, for sure. Also, you should also take the time to understand what toxic behaviors look like, even if they're not done directly to you, right? So, excuse me. Sometimes just by watching how a person is like interacting with other people can give you a big, clue onto some hidden toxic traits. So, for example, if someone is constantly gossiping or talking negatively about others, it may be a sign that they could be a little, insecure or jealous, or, they may, especially, it's certainly toxic if they seem to get a sense of satisfaction from putting others down. That's a toxic trait and something you really got to be aware of. So even if it's not being done to you, just pay attention, to how somebody's talking about other people.
Yeah, and if they're consistently putting people down, and putting down their ex-partner, especially while they're talking to you, it's a sign that they may be bitter and resentful as well, or guilty about something.
Yeah.
Or if one is always complaining about their job or their coworkers, it's a sign that they may be negative and pessimistic.
Yeah, for sure. And if someone is always like criticizing or judging others, it's certainly a sign that, it can be a little toxic, because they may have like high expectations of others and they may not be able to accept people for who they are. This is a big thing when it comes to having a relationship, and we always talk about, acceptance being very important within the relationship on both levels. So certainly want somebody who is willing to accept a person for who they are and not just, have those unrealistic expectations, especially if you're not able to meet them. So, but if you are, then that's even better. But just something to be aware of.
Yep, and if someone is dismissive or disrespectful of others, it's a sign that they may be toxic. Mm-hmm. So, of course, that's an obvious sign. So they may not value other people's opinions or feelings, and that they may not treat others with kindness and respect.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Certainly pay attention to how they react when other people are serving them. Like if they're not appreciative, if they feel a sense of entitlement, well, like, you better did this, or I don't like this, like all of that is very off-putting, and certainly a red flag in my book, because you don't want to be, a relationship is all about being of service. So if they're taking for granted someone who's simply, preparing a meal for them, or, giving them, I don't know, being nice or kind to them, and they're not quite appreciative of that, that's a red flag and something to be aware of, because they could treat you that way too.
And if someone is always talking about themselves and never seem interested in learning about others, it's a sign that they may be self-centered, very selfish as well.
Yeah, they should certainly be interested in getting to know you.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone is like manipulative or controlling, that can of course be a sign that a person is toxic, and that was one that this lady was able to recognize. So certainly if someone is trying to control your thoughts or your feelings or your behaviors, they certainly may be trying to use, or if they use like guilt or shame to get you to do something that they want you to do, that's that can be really toxic and something to pay attention to, especially if it's like directed towards trying to control their friends or their family. If you see the way they interact with them coming off to be manipulative, that's a big sign that they're probably going to be that way towards you. So yeah.
And if someone is lacking empathy, it's a sign that they may be toxic. So they may not be able to understand or relate to others' emotions, and they may not care how their words or actions affect you or other people.
Yeah, can have a relationship like that. And of course, if someone is always making excuses for their bad behavior.
No accountability.
No accountability. Clear sign of toxicity, and something that we commonly don't talk about within society. But if you can't take accountability, I'm sorry, that's toxic. And, it's just something to be aware of. So just pay attention. If they're saying ask them why they, their last relationship broke up. And again, like if you mentioned, if it's all the spouse and they don't ever talk about any lesson that they learned from their past relationship or anything like that, something to be wary of, because hey, it's probably how they may treat you along the way. Wait, hold on, let me see. It says something went wrong. This daggone stream, I don't know. We are just not going to be able to. No, it's the same.
I said the signal was excellent, but I don't think so. It's just that
it's Restream. Something's up with Restream today.
Yep.
All right. LO. We'll hook and YouTube back up. YouTube and Facebook back up later.
Oh, we appreciate all of you all definitely for being with us. And by all means, if this is a live call-in show, if you all have any questions or concerns or like to jump on some topics, we're more than welcome to, talk about those with you as well. So,
yeah.
Please like and share our videos. It's on YouTube and Instagram as well. Tell your friends about us. Subscribe. Ask them to subscribe to our channel as well, as it's growing every day. Yeah. Really appreciate it. Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's important to remember that everyone has flaws and no one is perfect. However, if you notice that someone is consistently displaying any of these red flags listed above, it may be a sign that they are toxic, of course. It's important to protect yourself from toxic people, and that may mean setting boundaries or even ending the relationships.
Yeah, or the whole dating experience within itself.
Right.
I don't think there's anything wrong with walking away from a date if it's not, offering you what you need. But do it in a respectful way as well, because I do believe in karma with that too. So
right, I mean, the flip side of this, you yourself can't be toxic. So if you're toxic and you don't know about it, someone has to have told you already.
Right. If you're doing any of those things that we just talked about, if it's
then the problem is you, it's not the other person. So
it
may not be the other person. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and you got to take accountability for that as well. That's the only way that you can level up and really attract the type of relationship that you want, for sure.
So learning to utilize your gut instincts. Let's talk about this. So your gut instincts is a powerful tool that can tell you a lot about the energy of a person. Yeah. It is a combination of your intuition and your subconscious mind and your physical body's response to the person's energy.
I love this, especially when you take the time to develop this. This is something that has to be developed if you're not, used to trusting your gut. We all have that. It's not, set for just male or female. We all have this ability, and it's really, really important to take the time to garner the skills that are going to help you to be able to utilize this. Because, for example, when you meet someone and your subconscious mind is, immediately your subconscious mind begins to process their energy. As much as we may not, consciously recognize what's going on, the body really is a tuning tool that is just picking up everything from our environment. So in particular, it's going to start sending all types of signals throughout your body. And if you are able to pay attention to how these signals may manifest in a variety of different ways, it can really give you some heads up on, if this person is, good for you or maybe not. So for example, like a feeling of warmth or coldness, that's certainly a sign. Or like if you get a sense of comfort or unease, that's a sign, that knot in your stomach. Or, maybe even those butterflies in your stomach. Those are definitely signs that we have all heard of. And especially like the racing heart, or maybe even the goosebumps, the tingling sensation on your skin. All of that are signs that if you can learn to listen to your gut, you can really be able to understand, what you're kind of feeling and why you're feeling that way. So then that way you can utilize it to your advantage. It's certainly important too that if you can't explain why you are feeling a certain way, to still be able to, pay attention to it and take note of it. Because sometimes, I would say most of the time, your gut instinct is really, really right about what's going on. Think of those situations where, you walk into an environment and something just doesn't feel right? And you're just like, man, I feel like I need to leave. And you leave and then something bad happens. That is the perfect opportunity. That is the perfect chance where you saw your gut coming to you and saying, hey, avoid this, place, avoid this situation. Something about to go down. You may not know about it, but, something could really go down. And that's a great way that you can recognize toxic people or toxic situations long before you actually get involved in the whole thing.
And when you meet someone, notice how your body feels. Do you feel relaxed and comfortable, or do you feel tense and uneasy? But sometimes you may feel anxious and nervous out of, in a good way.
Yeah, being able to recognize.
Right.
And like we were kind of saying, like, you have to kind of practice with this. It's not going to be something that, unless you already utilize it all the time, it's going to be a little difficult at first. But, by just practicing it, you can get better with discerning, what it is that's going on.
And try listening to your intuition. Your intuition is essentially your inner voice or gut feeling. It is guidance, your guidance system that is connected to your higher self, which is your soul. So your intuition can give you insight into the person's energy that you may not be consciously aware of. So for example, you may meet someone who seems nice and friendly on the surface, but your gut instincts tell you that something is off.
Yeah.
So this may be because your subconscious mind is picking up on subtle cues, such as a person's body language, tone of voice, or facial expressions. And if you are unsure about whether or not to trust your gut instinct, you can always ask yourself the following questions. Does this person make me feel good about myself? Do I feel respected and valued about this person? Can I be myself around this person? Do I feel safe and comfortable with this person? And do I have a similar value and goals as this person does? You see, that's what I stand for. I'm more so a factual person. So that's what I would do. It's not that I don't trust my gut instinct. It's that I've been trained to search for facts and then, answers, pretty much. I have more so a calculative and scientific mind, as I've been trained to do that as a child. So that's just my upbringing. So if you answer no to any of these questions, it may be a sign that your gut instinct is right.
Yeah, and that's a great way where you can tap into it. Yeah. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to connect with yourself. We all learn.
We all are different. So what's
Yeah.
right for one person isn't always the same for someone else.
Yeah, and the avenue may be different to get there, but as long as you get there, that's all that really matters. So it's really important, though, to listen to your gut instinct and protect yourself from toxic people and situations. So lastly, this young lady asked for some questions. You can ask someone you are dating to identify if they may be toxic. Of course, this can go any way, male or female. I really love these questions in particular because not only will it help you, garner some more information about this person, it can really help you weed out whether or not this person is good for you in general. So simple questions like, how do you define a healthy relationship? That's a big one.
Yup, and what are your communication needs and expectations? I would like to throw in, did you have intentions?
No, I think that's good.
Yeah, what are your intentions as far as dating? What are your dating intentions? That's always one of them.
Yep.
Yep, and also too, how do you handle conflict?
Yep. You can ask things like, what are your thoughts on jealousy or possessiveness? Or what are your thoughts on, what do you consider anger or aggression? Little things like that. That's one way to ask.
And what are your thoughts on boundaries and respecting each other's space?
How do you deal with disappointment and rejection? That's a big one. And clue into the person,
And what are your thoughts on compromise and teamwork?
Yeah, that's huge for a relationship. You need those things. And what are your thoughts on trust and honesty? That's a big one too. It'll help you out a bit.
What are your thoughts on accountability and forgiveness?
And of course, what are your thoughts on personal growth and development? I think these are cool little questions that you can ask even on the first date, just to spark up some conversation and just see what someone has to say.
I like to throw one more in there. What are your roles in a marriage?
Yeah. What are you, the vision, your marriage vision? Yeah.
And what role do you see me in the marriage?
Or see your, you don't have to say specifically me, especially if it's a first date, but what do you see your husband doing or your wife doing?
Right.
Within the relationship.
Yeah, so that you know from gate exactly whether or not if you are compatible or not. Because sometimes people don't want to compromise roles. They don't.
Yeah, that's true.
So how someone answers these questions can give you a good sense of their values, beliefs, and relationship communication style. So if their answers are vague, dismissive or concerning, it may be a sign that they are not a healthy partner or yet ready for a real relationship.
Yeah, or even just simply not the one for you. You know, some people are just not compatible. So what they may see as, you know, being, you know, their marriage vision or whatever, or non-toxic traits, you know, for you it could be. So
I mean, I think that everyone has a capable or compatible person there for them, but
Yeah.
it's just that some people are very extreme as far as what their styles are and the way they communicate, and some aren't.
And their expectations.
Yeah, and their expectations are very extreme, and so you know you might find that person. You know, I guess Kanye did, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's someone out there for everybody.
Because his relationship was a bit extreme, but
hey, you know,
somebody out there for somebody, like you said.
Hopefully they're happy, right? I'm all for a person's happiness because it ain't got nothing to do with me.
Right.
In particular, too, with this young lady, she said that, you know, the expectations of, I guess, what they wanted her to do in the relationship wasn't something, you know, that she was
willing to sign up for.
Willing to sign up for. And this would help eliminate that, right? You don't
Right.
have to get into that relationship.
But at the understanding, though, the understanding is that if you have extreme expectations, which are out of traditional norms, more than likely you are lowering the probability of you finding somebody that fits that mold. Unless you are an exceptional person, you yourself, and they have something that you want. So be wary of that as well. So understand that. So because you know, I can only wonder what she's saying no to as far as not wanting to be, you know, in the relationship. Maybe she doesn't want guidance from a man or wherever the case may be. So that's only, you know, that takes a conversation to find out. But you know.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Because sometimes you may find a guy that isn't as, you know, strict with what he believes, depending on how he was raised or whatever, and that may be more so the guy for you, not somebody who, you know, is more traditional and raised on certain values. It's just really important to pay attention to what it is you want and what that person that you want would want as well, because you got to pay attention to your spouse. So yeah,
right, because you can't make people change. I know we say that more than often, but you yourself cannot make people change. You can inspire change, but you can't force people or talk people into changing.
Yeah.
It just can't happen. You can inspire change, but you just can't force people to change.
Yeah.
Just want to drill that in there. Because if you have people out there that be wanting to make people change, you just can't do it. You just what you're doing is making them upset, angry, and depressed at you.
Yeah, it's not
so, and it no.
Yeah. But also some just last minute notes. Really be sure to pay attention to how someone behaves when you are together. You know, do they make you feel good about yourself and your relationship and where things could be going? Those intentions you mentioned, that's a big one. Are they supportive and respectful of your needs and your feelings? You know, not even, you know, just on the first date, but maybe a couple months out, do you still feel the same way like you did, or have things, you know, started to change a bit? It's important to note that. And also, do they communicate openly and honestly with you? I mean, because if not, you know, that could be a sign that they, you know, that they might not necessarily be toxic, but they certainly aren't the one for you if they're not able to do that for you, because you really need that.
Yep, and some last minute things we want to leave you with.
Yeah.
As a simple reminder is to be honest with yourself about your own needs and wants, your expectations, your barriers. So also too, what are you looking for in a relationship? Be honest with yourself. So what are your values? What kind of treatments do you deserve? Mm-hmm. So once you know what you want and need, it's easier to identify when someone is making those expectations. When someone isn't meeting those expectations.
Yeah, because if you don't know what you deserve, or, you know, it goes right back to what we were saying about, you know, frequency wise, if you have low self-esteem and you don't know, then
right. In other words, you need to fix yourself first before you jump into a relationship.
Yeah, for sure. So then that way you are able to attract what you deserve and able to recognize that.
Well, and also too that you are able to give your all in the relationship, as opposed to trying to gather yourself and get yourself together while you're in the relationship. Mm-hmm. And you have to think about that too, the fairness of that too as well. You know, you may have someone there who's already themselves gathered and ready for a full-fledged relationship, and you know you don't want to lead them astray in thinking that you already for that relationship and willing to participate in it, and then find out, oh, but wait, I have some unhealed past dramas and things that I need, because if not, I'm not going to be able to fully give myself and communicate with you properly. Yeah. So that part isn't fair in the relationship. So make sure that you yourself, if you are that toxic person or maybe suffering from trauma in the past that prevents you from communicating properly, please go seek help first so that you can get understanding of what's going on with you and also ways to fix those issues.
Yeah. And speaking of which, something that I kind of heard, I came across today was this woman who was saying how her husband actually, when she was in the relationship with her husband, that she didn't know that, he was actually trying to get her to be, healthier in the relationship. And in a way, it was kind of like intimidating and something that she just wasn't quite.
It was triggering.
Yeah, and she wasn't ready for it. And it took her some time to gather herself and, see that, he wasn't trying to, be mean or be abusive or be, toxic or controlling, but he was just more so, guiding and
right.
Got to be open to that.
You see, that's the strange thing about it is that when it's always someone close to you that's always trying to get you to seek help. And now you that's a great example of what I was saying before, is that you can only inspire change, and then you can't force people to change. If someone is traumatized, they need to go and find help on their own and realize that they have an issue. Yeah. Have to be honest with themselves, and that's the hard part. Yeah. So, and oftentimes that takes a third party or someone from the outside of the relationship to actually able to pierce through that person's mind and get them to understand that, hey, you know what, I really do need help. Yeah. So oftentimes it's not the spouse that's able to get the breakthrough, and that's why oftentimes you see interventions where there's a group of people who love the person in the room with someone else who's not in the relationship at all, that's willing to talk about and discuss situations dealing with that person's trauma and why they're having communication issues or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So that's the reason why those things happen, because it's harder sometimes with if your loved one, your direct loved one is trying to get you to realize that, hey, I love you and everything, but you got some issues that you need to work on. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes you may not take those things seriously, or maybe triggering to you, and then may start an argument and a fight. So, yeah. If you think that you have an inkling of, trauma and things that are unresolved, be kind to that person who's trying to give you that advice and listen.
And kind to yourself.
Right, and kind to yourself and forgiving to yourself to allow that information to sink in.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the only way you can start healing.
Yeah. And of course, be sure to set boundaries and be able to communicate them clearly. People who often have come, or just have a difficulty setting boundaries in general, they are certainly more likely to attract toxic people into their lives, to allow them to be in their lives, and certainly to tolerate their bad behavior, especially if it is rooted in, like we were mentioning earlier, some type of, childhood unhealthy things that you have learned. Maybe you weren't allowed to have boundaries as a child and stuff like that. So maybe it's really hard for you to be able to communicate that. So if, make sure that you're able to set your boundaries on the things that you will tolerate and the things that you won't tolerate, and how you want your relationship to look, your marriage vision. And that's okay. Everybody's going to have their own different marriage vision. There's no one size fit all for when it comes to what your marriage life is going to look like. But you certainly have to be able to set those boundaries. And if someone isn't for you, they're just not for you.
In the beginning, please.
Mm-hmm.
Set those boundaries and expectations in the beginning so that you don't have to go through a divorce and, and by all means, don't ignore them. Don't ignore the toxic behavior from your boyfriend or your girlfriend and thinking that that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, it really isn't.
So,
let me see.
So let your date or your spouse know what behaviors are acceptable and unacceptable to you. So be firm and assertive in communicating your needs, your wants, your expectations, etc. So everyone has different experiences and reasons for why they may end up in toxic relationships. However, if you find yourself in a pattern of unhealthy relationships, it is important to seek help from a therapist or a coach or counselors like us, consultants like us, so we can help you to understand your relationship patterns and develop strategies for breaking this cycle.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like I said before, it may actually be you. You're the reason why you aren't able to maintain healthy relationships.
Yeah.
You may be the one refusing these things and you don't see it because your friends are just telling you you're just dating the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what friends do. They prop you up. They prop you up, and sometimes they don't have the guts to knock you down and to tell you the truth because they want to be your friends. And often at times, they're in worse relationship situations than you are. Yeah. So what that common thing goes is that misery loves company. So you can't always rely on friends to give you the best advice, but sometimes most of the time you can rely on friends to give you comfort. And often at times that's not what you need. Sometimes the best thing to do is to be shaken up at your core and shocked in awe in order for you to get your life right back together. In order for you to find someone to be in a long-lasting relationship together.
Yeah, I think especially when you're dealing with the habits or the addicting behaviors, like if you're addicted to chaos or you're addicted to that drama or something like that. That's certainly a time where, you got to be shaken up and somebody got to wake you up and say, hey, this isn't really healthy. And in particular, too, pay attention to who you're getting your information from. Kudos to y'all for being here tonight. Thank you all for being here tonight. But in particular, pay attention to who else you're getting your information from, because you don't want to take information from people who are not in healthy relationships themselves. They are often the ones that kind of give the worst relationship advice because they don't have the actual practice. They aren't actually on the vibration, the frequency of love, that healthy relationship, so that they can offer that perspective from that point of view. Mm-hmm. You got to pay attention to where you're getting your information from. If this is something that you're looking to actually create in your life based off of, what they've created in their life, because that's ultimately what you're kind of going to create. If you're getting, relationship advice from somebody who hasn't been able to hold a successful relationship, they're not really going to be able to give you that tried and true method of something that they're actually doing, they're actually implementing, and that's actually working for them. So just really pay attention to that, because there are lots of healthy couples out here giving advice, lots of healthy relationship coaches and stuff out here giving advice. Just vet them. You don't want to it was a commercial. I can't think of who had the commercial. It was like, when you sleep on something and you wake up and really realize that, dang, my life coach's life is shit. Like, why would you want to take somebody's advice when their life isn't, the way you kind of want it to be? So it's really something to be mindful of, in particular, because you want to be on the frequency. You want to be on the vibration of what you want to align yourself with and attract ultimately into your life. So, yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. So that's our answer for that
question.
Yep, for those questions that the lady had. Yeah. And does anybody have any questions, any concerns, any topics that you would like for us to cover out there? Anybody?
Yeah, we're going to have to make some shorts for YouTube. I can't believe our stream has been dropped out. But it's all right. At least Instagram is in the house with us. Y'all always show up. Thank you so much for your support. We hope that you have obtained some type of value from this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So until next time, Blueprint family, thank you all for joining us. And we will see you all tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Peace.